It's that time again. If you're a real estate agent and you're looking to finally build a business that creates consistent cash flow, but you're concerned about all of the market disruptions, relax. You found your safe haven to learn the secret to success. List, you last. Welcome to this week's podcast. Hey, welcome, fellow listing agents. Bob Mangold, the listing coach, here with episode 47 of the If You List, You Last podcast. Hey, as always, thanks for listening, sharing, and downloading. Today, we're going to talk about using cash offers to get more listings. So grab a cup of coffee and settle in. Now, real quick, just a reminder, make sure you join our Real Estate Asset Advisor Facebook group so you can join in on the conversation, share your thoughts, comments, or questions on any of the topics I discuss right here on the podcast. And before I get started, one more important topic. We're looking for high-performance agents to start and grow a listing agent in markets across the country. Now, if you feel you're the right leader, we'll actually invest in the marketing and infrastructure of your business without taking any overrides or royalties. Now, if you're open to a conversation around that, go ahead and join the Facebook group and send me a DM. Now, let's get into this week's mortgage market update. On Friday, the vaunted BLS jobs report came out and threw complete chaos into the markets. So on Friday, they announced that there were 254,000 new jobs created versus 140,000 estimate. So almost double what we were anticipating. They revised the last 2 months up 72,000, and they actually took birth-death model and took business or took numbers away from that. Now, why did that throw the markets into chaos? Well, we haven't seen numbers like this before, and I think everybody can agree that, well, the job market has softened. All of a sudden, 30 days before an election, we have these massive job numbers come out. Do anybody really think, especially anybody who's followed the podcast, does anybody really have any faith in those numbers? Now, here's the interesting thing. ADP, the people that process 25 million paychecks a week, actually showed that we lost 8,000 jobs in the last 30 days. So how does a private sector who's preparing millions and millions and millions of paychecks have a vastly different number like that? How could that possibly happen? And then an interesting statistic, out of those 254,000 jobs that were reported, 76,000 of them came from government and healthcare, which healthcare is basically government run now. So at the end of the day, folks, this is just another example of how BLS has come in and completely roiled the markets. It absolutely decimated the mortgage-backed security market, which is actually what determines interest rates on mortgage. It sent those rates, the mortgage-backed security bond rates, crashing, which means interest rates go up. And the 10-year Treasury at one point was up as many as 15 points. What's that mean? It actually went over 4%. So it moved from under 3.7 to 4%. Now, the 10-year Treasury does not really affect mortgage rates. It affects car loans, credit card debt, installment loans, things of that nature. So by manipulating these numbers, they're actually hurting the consumer, having interest rates go up instead of down. Now, here's the interesting thing. They also have what they call a household survey, where they actually call 60,000 homes. And according to that number, they added 430,000 jobs. Folks, if that isn't proof that they manipulate the numbers, they've talked to 60,000 households that reported up 430,000 jobs, yet they report to the market 254. Well, where did that come from? So here's the interesting thing. According to their household survey, remember, added 254,000 jobs this month, 231,000 of them were 16 to 19-year-olds. All but 20,000 are kids getting jobs. Now, here's the interesting thing. This is like, September, end of October, end of August, where we're gathering those numbers. That's when kids typically are leaving those jobs because they're going back to school. Yet we added 231,000 jobs from 16 to 19-year-olds. Pretty interesting, right? then the participation rate stayed the same. Now, average hourly rate actually went up about 0.1%, which, okay, inflation is bad. Having rising wages is important. But here's the part that the average consumer or anybody who hasn't run a business just doesn't seem to grasp. When wages go up, hours get cut. And so the average hours that were worked has gone down again another 0.1%. And you go, well, 0.1%, big deal. Well, remember, folks, that's over hundreds of millions of jobs. So that's actually a pretty substantial number. And all that happens when wages go up, hours get cut back or they put automation in place. None of that helps the consumer, right? Just look at the minimum wage rate increase in California, what that's done to fast food jobs there. It's all you need to understand. They simply get rid of it, or so many fast food restaurants have closed because they simply can't operate at a profit. So again, 30 days before an election, we have these ridiculous numbers come out, tanks the market. The stock market on Friday had this wild up and down, momentum. The bond market and the mortgage-backed security market didn't have such luck. It was just down, and it was down substantially. So again, this is actually not good for consumers in that respect. And that's again, if we're assuming that we believe the job numbers, or if we're happy that 231,000 16 to 19-year-old kids had to go out and get a job out of the 254,000 jobs created. So I hate to harp on that because, folks, it's radically important because, as I talk about week to week, I still believe that interest rates overall will be somewhere around 5.75% by the end of the year. But I will just tell you this, folks, it is 100% hinged on who wins that election. So I'm not going to get into politics here. You figure out who's more business friendly, but I'm just telling you everything is going to be predicated on that. So even though I do believe that we'd be at 5.75%, all bets are off based on what happens on November 5th. So with that, I hate to be the bearer of, well, technically good news, but realistically bad news. But that's the mortgage market, folks. Okay, let's talk about using cash offers to take more listings now. And I have a special guest today, so let's go. So let's get into this week's topic now, how to use cash offers to take more listings. Now, I'm joined today by Danielle Ruiz from Zoom Casa, and we're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of cash offers because, Danielle, everybody thinks that cash offers like the be-all, end-all. It solves every listing solution that they have, and that's
Right.
simply not the case, is it?
That is not the case. You're absolutely right.
But there are very specific places where it certainly helps you take more
Absolutely right.
listings, do more transactions, because there is a place for cash offers in the marketplace. So, like Danielle, what would be the best, say, solutions that you come across where, Zoom Casa and a cash offer helps it could be the seller or the family. A lot of times the ideal candidate is like a family that's selling a property that the parents might have passed away or things like that. So, like, what are the
Right.
best opportunities, I guess, for cash offers?
Honestly, that's what I love about our product, is that in the 3+ years that I've been with the company, I've seen just about every scenario you can possibly imagine. So as a real estate agent, understanding the tool and the service that we offer, I think is such a great thing because it literally could almost work for every scenario. Everybody kind of picks away and uses it for different things. There's different benefits. They don't all necessarily benefit, or every benefit the program offers doesn't pertain necessarily to every single client, but usually there's a few things that are checking some boxes for them. And I think that's what makes it such a versatile product. We've helped people from, elderly who need, just the ease and convenience of the program, essentially, large families, essentially, who need to cash out quick and move on and not have to deal with the hassles of people coming in and out of the home. We have a lot of people working from home now, so being able to take a cash offer, move on, and then all the minutia happens afterwards to sell their home. That's a great convenience that you can't get selling traditionally. And there's a lot of reasons why people may need that. But again, elderly, people moving in and out of state, people with large families, maybe with a lot of stuff in their home, probate situations, pre-foreclosure, people that,
Homes
just
that
don't
need
want to
work,
deal with it.
right? Homes that
Yeah,
need work.
So essentially with our program, it's a two-step process essentially. So on the first portion of the transaction, we come in, we essentially purchase the seller's property in cash for the full appraised value. So what I like about this is that we're giving fair market value for the client's home initially. Our appraisals and inspections that are done up front are done by third parties. The appraisal essentially is going to determine our purchase price. So we purchase it for that full amount. From there, we typically advance up to 70% of that amount upfront for the seller, which is great because they can take that, pay off the rest of their mortgage or any other debt that they have that they need to clear. It does allow them to be non-contingent going into their next purchase if they are looking to buy again, and it gets this off their books. So they wipe the slate clean, they take, any remaining funds from there, and that's typically what gets them into the next home. So the remaining money after we pay off the mortgage and debt can be used for down payment, moving expenses, etc. The great thing about this is we can typically close in as quick as 10 to 15 days. Otherwise, we can do a flexible close option, which allows the seller the flexibility they don't get selling traditionally, where they can stay in the home for an extended period of time, make the proper arrangements, look for the property, place offers, make the moving arrangements, do all the things. We also have situations where it's a time thing. Maybe they're starting a job in a few months. Maybe their kids aren't out of school yet. So again, this gives them that control and certainty they don't have selling traditionally. So they set the date that works for them. We close on the property and essentially they're wired their funds and title is transferred within 24 hours. Typically from there, that's when the client's moving on to the next property. Once that happens and the home is now vacant, we essentially come in, we prepare it for sale as needed. What's nice about this is, the seller has full control as to what that looks like. Every agent kind of has a different marketing plan for the property. Some people want to go in, they want to do all the things and sell it for the maximum price. Other people want to do lipstick or maybe just sell it as is, and that's fine. The seller has full control of what that looks like. Essentially, if they do want to move forward with any of those items, we do have people on staff, designers, project coordinators, and we have a proprietary platform of vendors and contractors we can utilize as well for recommendations and pricing. Again, we're flexible, so if the agent has contacts, we can use them too.
So let me
Really,
let me help
yeah,
break this. Let me help break this down for agents that are listening, really anybody that's listening. So let's say a house is $1 million and
yep,
that's the price that you're agreed on. Just I use that because the math is simple. The
okay,
person would get $700,000 up front, right?
okay,
So they can
yep,
pay off their loan and do all those things. But the agent looks at it, the seller knows, gosh, if we would have updated the house, we would have done these things, it could be worth $1.2 million.
yeah, right,
You guys will come in, you would, I don't want to say front that $700 or the $700,000, but ultimately that would be the first payoff.
right,
Do the work at a pre-agreed price. So let's say that was
yeah,
whatever it would be, 50 or $75,000. The seller
hmm,
has the right to approve that, saying, "Yep, let's do that
correct.
at that price." You guys will come in and do that and remarket the property then at, and let's say we sell it at 1.2 million. What
Absolutely.
happens from that point?
Sure. So essentially, once the home goes on the market, again, you're correct. The seller determines what work is done. They determine the list price. We get it on the market with the agent of their choice. They go ahead and market the property and do what they do best, which is get it sold. So once the property does sell, essentially from there, the seller is going to get a second payment for any upside that happens after the resale. So with this program, they're benefiting from the full market price of the property. They're essentially just getting that in two payments. So they're getting the majority of the money up front, less the mortgage payoff, and then any upside that happens after the resale is what they get.
Yeah, minus the fixing costs, or fix
Minus
up
any
costs and
fees, of
stuff.
course. Yeah, the
Right.
second portion of the transaction does look a little bit more like a traditional sale with closing costs, commissions paid out. We take a program fee, and anything remaining from there goes to them.
Right. So let's talk about the program fee. It's another
Okay.
reason that I like Zoom Casa so much is the program fees are just more favorable to a seller. I'll just leave it at that. So
Absolutely.
let's talk about those.
So what I like about our program fee, I mean, obviously you can offset some of that cost by going in and doing the work and hopefully selling the home for more. So that's one benefit. In general, I would say our program fee as a whole typically ranges anywhere between 4 to 7% on average. Now, obviously that's going to vary based on each property. So how we determine our fees is essentially in two parts. So there is a base fee that we charge. That's a flat fee based on the resale value of the property. And essentially that fee is on a sliding scale. So it's going to be dependent on how much we advance to the seller. On most transactions, again, just depending on what the details are, we typically advance anywhere from 50 to 70%. So just to kind of give you a range, that would bring the base fee for the program fee anywhere between 4 to 5%. So that's just a flat fee off the top. And I think of it kind of like a loan, because the money we're advancing to the seller, we're loaning it to them prior to the home actually selling. So again, based on what that amount is, we'll determine what that fee is. In addition to that, we have a monthly fee or a carrying cost, if you want to look at it that way. It's 0.99% of the resale value, and it essentially accrues for the time that Zoom Casa will own the property. So it typically, we prefer to close on the property just prior to the homeowner moving on. That way we can keep those fees down as much as possible. But it's going to pretty much take into account any time for possible renovations, days on market until we can get an offer, and time for closing with the new buyer. So usually once we have a better understanding of kind of what that's going to look like, I usually like to prepare some scenarios for the homeowner so they can get an idea of kind of best and worst case scenario, and we can gauge pretty much what those fees might look like for them.
Right. So here's how I think about it anyway, and everybody can think about it however you want. Are there fees in there for carrying costs? Well, of course there are. And there's fees for
Right.
fixing. Of course there is, right? Nobody can do this for free. But at the end of the day, if you had a house, and again, I'm just using it as an example and making up the numbers because I can do the math without a calculator.
Of
You got a
course.
$1 million house, you do the fix up and you sell for 1.2 million, you got an extra $200,000. And I know your program costs wouldn't be, 100,000, but let's say that they
Right.
were.
Mm-hmm.
You still made $100,000 more money
Right.
without ever having to do any of the work,
Absolutely. And what I
right? So
really
that's how I
enjoy.
look at it.
No, you're absolutely right. And Zoom Casa is very transparent about all the fees. I mean, we have all of these discussions up front. We run the numbers, any information that the client needs to feel comfortable and better understand kind of what this may look like for them. We're happy to do that up front. Whereas, sometimes there's hidden things down the road with maybe other options that may be available. You don't have to worry about that with us. These are all the conversations we have up front. It's all listed in our contracts or agreements, so everything's right there for them to see, black and white.
I mean, one of the things that's critical for you guys in the real estate industry to know, and really as a home seller, everything is done by contract. It's in writing. You're initialing, you're signing.
Yes,
It's really hard for somebody to come back and say, well, no, I didn't know that when it's in a contract.
exactly.
And nobody
Exactly.
wants that one way or the other, right? So as an agent listening to this, you don't want that hassle and headache. So you want to make sure that everything you do is in writing to protect yourself,
Absolutely.
your seller, and your and Zoom Casa, right? Because everybody in the transaction has to win to make this a
Right.
good transaction. It's the way it is.
Absolutely.
A couple of caveats that I would tell you if you're an agent listening to this. Before you actually put the property in the MLS, have Danielle do this up front.
Yeah, absolutely.
The reason for that is they will have it appraised, but if it's in MLS, your purchase price is the list price then, right?
Yes, correct.
So here's the thing, folks. If you have a house that just needed a ton of work and you listed it for 500,000 just because, my God, they need $100,000 in work, but if somebody actually came in and did it, you could sell it for 750.
Absolutely.
You don't want
Again,
to
the
do
seller
that.
has the say so.
Right.
Absolutely.
So
And
get the appraised value by doing that before you actually list it. That's all. It's a
right.
simple process.
And
That
just
way
better
you're doing the right
understand.
thing. Yeah, you're doing the
Yeah.
right thing by the seller. You're doing the right thing by Zoom Casa, and we earn our money because we're doing the right thing for both parties.
And we really empower the agents to really, again, do what they do best. I mean, there's all kinds of strategies for selling a home once it goes on the market. So again, some people may price it a little under to, get more activity happening up front. Maybe they
Right.
sell a little over because they want some buffer room in terms of negotiating on the price. We, empower the agent to work with their agent and do what they feel is best when the home is initially listed. So we don't get in the middle of that.
Right. And so the way that the commissions work for an agent, pretty simple, right? If you whatever you
Absolutely.
listed it for, we're going to list it for 2.5%, 3%, whatever it is, they're going to get paid
Absolutely.
that, right, Danielle?
One thing I want to add to that, what's great is we do honor full commission, whatever they negotiate with their clients, but kind of the benefit to the agent is because this is a two-step or a two-transaction deal, they can essentially get paid on both transactions. So we have some agents where they may take, a little advance on the first transaction and then get the rest after the resale. Or they may take all of their commissions once the home resells and take nothing up front. I've seen it reverse. I've seen them take their full commission on the first, and we just give commission to the buyer's agent on the resale. That we have the flexibility to do that because it is two transactions. So I say, in terms of the numbers, we can, run all the numbers and look at some different scenarios, and whatever makes the most sense for the agent and the client, that's what we can do.
So let me do the math for you agents listening or watching, because, well, it'll help. Would you rather get a 3%? I'm going to use the $1 million again. Would you rather get 3% on $1 million or 3% on 1.2?
Right.
But it's a cash flow issue for each agent, right? Maybe you need that cash flow right now, and that's
Mm-hmm.
okay. The good news is you have flexibility. And in most of the cash offer platforms that I've seen, you don't have that flexibility. And I also don't have never seen, and trust me, I pay attention to this stuff, uh, a cash offer that will come in and appraise the house and pay you the appraised value, right? You're gonna
Correct.
you're gonna submit an offer. Let's take that same $100,000, and I'll use a real life example. One of my agents just did one for it's about $1 million house, and the cash offer came back at 725.
Okay.
Folks, here's what I'm going to tell you. If you go in to a listing presentation and say, I do have an offer for you for 725. Let's assume that they're not a motivated, it's not a probate, it's not a elderly person, a family that needs to sell, any of those motivated factors. And you go in and bring
Mm-hmm.
a cash offer in at 725, the likelihood of you actually getting that listing is zero. You've
Right.
so offended the potential seller
Right.
that you're shooting yourself in the foot, so you don't do it. So the beauty of what Zoom Casa does, you can say, hey, we can get a cash offer at the appraised value of the house. Now we're going to
Absolutely.
have some more flexibility if there's things that need to be done, or we think we could get a higher price, but you need to move on, close on your other house, whatever those different scenarios are. It gives the seller flexibility. And the way that
Absolutely.
you can make more money as a real estate agent is to be able to help your clients solve their problems. They may need to move fast, they may not want to do the work, whatever their problems are. The more opportunity that you have to solve those problems, the more people will hire you. It really is that simple in our business.
Yeah, absolutely. And
And
I feel like more homeowners are more educated now these days, especially with the internet, and there's so many different options out there. So they're almost coming to agents now saying, "What can you offer me?" Not everybody's looking just to sell traditionally now. They're looking for options. So having this in your back pocket and knowing that it could be one of the better options out there, I think
and
is a
and
great
know
tool to
this,
have.
guys. Your clients are going to the different websites that they're advertising. Like if you're in markets that the open doors and offer pads and those guys work in, they're going there. Then they get the offer of the million and it's
Hmm.
725. I won't tell you which of the companies did it, but you figure it out, right? So they look at that, and then if you call them up and you bring up cash offer, and they were already, what's the right word? Irritated by that $725,000 offer, and you bring up the word cash offer, same thing. You have a problem. Now you got to simmer them down, right? When you
Yeah,
can say, hey, we can explore cash offer, the vendor that I work with will actually appraise the house and pay you appraised market value. You
right.
took that irritation and that what would we want to call it? That dueling between the seller and the agent, where it's
Hmm.
competition. No, guys, we're here to take and do this. And if it works for you, great. And if it doesn't, great. It's about
Right.
options. Because here's what I
Yeah.
want you to remember, guys, as a seller, they can sell it on their own. They
Hmm.
can hire any agent, right? Millions of agents. They can
Right.
hire the mega agents, the people that are all over TV, radio. You all know, have them in your market, right? They can hire a discount company, or so many people have a relative that's a part-time agent that, oh, they'll just do it for free.
Right.
The seller has options. If you
Hmm.
don't have options, chances are great you're not going to be the one they pick.
Absolutely.
So Zoom Casa is just another tool in your tool belt. When it's applicable, it's killer. If it's
Yeah.
not applicable, that's okay. It got you into
Hmm.
conversation. And quite honestly, guys, it positions you as somebody who's more of an expert and somebody who actually does bring and offer solutions to the table. Instead of going in
Absolutely.
and talking about, well, I've been in the business for 20 years and my clients all love me and I love kittens and like all the normal crap that y'all talk about in a listing presentation. Here's my tip for you. Solve people's problems, you'll get hired more.
I think this is a great thing too, because I do get a lot of calls from agents who are kind of freaking out because they took a listing, it's not selling, and now they're getting questioned, what are my other options? And to have Zoom Casa in your back pocket, just as a backup option, even for a listing that may not be selling for one reason or another, to be able to come back to us and say, get an offer and present that to your client, say, hey, let's give this, this much more time. If it doesn't work out, we can fall back on this offer, has been a great tool for a lot of the agents that I've talked to recently. Just depending on every market's a little different, every property, but I've seen a lot of those situations where homes are sitting and the sellers are starting to freak out. So then they come to us and they're like, okay, here's a great solution.
Right. And you can certainly do that. But what I would recommend to you folks is do this work up front, get an
Yeah,
offer up front so you know what that offer is. Right.
absolutely.
Number one. Number two, once it's listed and you've reduced the price 3 or 4 times, that's what they're
Hmm.
going to get paid.
Yeah.
So do the work up front. Go into your listing presentation with solutions and offers, but they don't have to take it right then and there.
Sure.
Right. So being an agent, you're just being prepared up front for this, which is really what an agent who deserves a 3% commission does,
Yeah,
in my humble
absolutely.
opinion. So, so this is simply gives you more opportunities and options. So what we're going to do, if you're watching this on YouTube, we'll put Danielle's contact information, phone number, email, etc. in there. If you're listening to it on a podcast, Danielle, tell them how they could get a hold of you.
Honestly, I try to be super available to agents because you never know when you need to, get me on the line to talk to a client. Feel free to call me anytime. I can provide my phone number, shoot me an email. You can text. I do text. I also have a Calendly link. So if you just want to jump on my calendar to discuss the program, we can kind of go through the details. If you have a client who wants to hear the details of the program and we can go through questions, I'm always ready and available to, jump in and go through all that information. So you're welcome to just book on my calendar as well.
And she is awesome, folks. That's not made up. I mean, my agents use her a lot, and so make sure that you take advantage of that. If you do have questions on scenarios like, "Hey, I've got this listing, and is this possible?" Reach out and get the answer. Right?
One thing I want to add to that too is I know there's kind of this shift happening in the real estate market right now with a lot of automation and you put in the address and the information, they shoot you an offer, which is great, but I think a lot of times there's other nuances and details about the property and the seller that are important to kind of figuring out the numbers and kind of fine tuning that information before you present it to your client. So with me, you have a real person, I pick up the phone, I'm always available, you can get in touch with me. And we can, make any adjustments needed to prepare the offer that makes the most sense to the client. Because I do see sometimes a lot of these offers that they've received from other companies and they're just very generic. And I think sometimes really going through the details and again, making changes and fine tuning things to better suit the client is really going to be the best offer to present to them.
And think of it this way as the seller, folks. Would you rather have an offer based on an algorithm
Right.
or an offer based on an appraisal?
Correct.
That's the huge difference to me.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
as the
Absolutely.
markets have turned and changed, the many of the cash offers that base it on an algorithm, hey, they've changed their algorithm in a substantially negative way, and I don't blame them in any way. It's a different market, right? What would sell in 2 days, 2 or 3 years ago, now could take 2 months. So they have to factor it in.
Absolutely.
So it's not a knock against anybody. It's just understanding algorithms are tweaked to base on the market. Where for
Yeah,
me, I'd rather have a real live human appraiser go out there and make the determination than an algorithm. And I'd be willing to bet you a lot of money if we interviewed 100 sellers, 99 of them would say, no, I would want it on the appraisal, not on the algorithm,
right.
in my
Absolutely.
opinion. So,
Absolutely.
so folks, we're going to put the information in. If it's in YouTube, it'll be in the description. It will put Danielle's contact information in the podcast down below so that you can reach out and contact her. And as always, I look forward to talking to you next week. And remember, if you list, you last. Talk to you next week.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Danielle.